haircut? Or are you rocking with it?
I was hoping.
Can I get a 360? Oh.
Okay, it's not
You kind of look like Rowan.
Oh,
Solid.
is it different from your last haircut?
Yeah, so it's basic.
Shorter.
What I usually get is a faux hawk, but this is a faux hawk with a
Low taper fade.
not a low taper fade. It's a fade of some sort. I don't know what it is, but
The high taper.
It looks like a high taper.
Yeah.
Ethan Batiste was wanting me to get it like a couple years ago, but I got it today at a spur of the moment. Okay, Agatha Christie. So just gonna go over the Mousetrap, Murder on the Orient Express, some other works, and then we're gonna have a fun little extra thing. Okay, the Mousetrap, it played the video.
Okay. You didn't warn me, so I still got it muted. Hang on.
Okay.
And according to Scotland Yard, the crime took place at 24 Culver Street, Paddington. The murdered woman was a Mrs. Maureen Lyon. In connection with the murder, the police are anxious to interview a man seen in the vicinity wearing a dark overcoat, light scarf, and a soft felt hat.
Okay, so as you can see, the play opens with the murder of Maureen Lyon, but in no adaptations of the play does it actually show the murder. It's just in sound. And then, so it opens up with that. Then the story moves to Monkswell Manor, where Molly and Giles Ralston, a young couple, are setting up Monkswell Manor to be like a guest house, where they're gonna have 5 guests. Christopher Wren, Mrs. Boyle, Major Metcalf, Miss Casewell, and Mr. Paravicini. Mr. Paravicini's kind of a nutcase. Well, everybody's weirded out by him because he's the last one to show. So yeah, that's in order of who shows when. Chris showed up first, Paravicini showed up last. And so whenever he shows up, this story takes place whenever, like during the big snowstorm. So when he shows up, he's like, oh yeah, like I got in a wreck in my Rolls Royce a couple like far away, and I like walked here basically. So everybody's kind of on edge about him, and then they all go to sleep, forget about that day. They wake up and they're snowed in, and the police superintendent, his name's like Hogbin, he calls Molly and Giles, and he's like, hey, like you guys are snowed in. And the dude who killed Maureen Lyon, we think he's about to show up at Monkswell Manor. So he's like, we're gonna send someone over there, like you're gonna be fine. And so Sergeant Trotter shows up, he skis there, because like the big thing is like, okay, we're snowed in, how is a police officer gonna get here? Sergeant Trotter skis there, and once he gets there, he starts an investigation. He like, go. And so he's on like a house tour with Giles and Molly, and everybody else is like doing their own thing. And we cut to Miss Boyle. She's like talking to a character off stage, and we can hear that character whistling the tune of 3 Blind Mice. I was gonna put up a video, but I didn't. Whistling the tune of 3 Blind Mice, which is important because the original title of the Mousetrap was 3 Blind Mice, and the character who kills off everybody is reported that before he murders someone, he'll whistle 3 Blind Mice. So we hear him whistling 3 Blind Mice, and then lights come back on, and Mrs. Boyle is strangled. So they're all like, no, who did that? So, gosh, I'm fast. So Trotter, he starts like digging into this investigation. And so Giles doesn't like Wren. He like, once Chris got there, he like had an immediate distrust. Whereas Molly liked Chris, like she felt a connection with him. So Giles is pointing towards Chris, and he's like, wait, no, like it's not me, like that's not my background, basically. And so Wren like confides in Molly and tells her like, yeah, like I deserted the army, basically. And so while all that's happening, Sergeant Trotter makes everybody like reenact their alibis, what they were doing, how they were doing it, who they were with whenever Mrs. Boyle died. Can you click next? So then we find out everybody leaves to go reenact their alibi, and Sergeant Trotter's on the stage alone. Out of nowhere, Molly comes out of the dark, and Sergeant Trotter's like, oh, like, you should have told me, you startled me, whatever, whatever. They start having like a really big, long dialogue where we find out that Molly is actually the teacher of the Corrigan children. The Corrigan children are Jimmy, Georgie, and Catherine, or Kathy. The big thing with them is Jimmy, he's the reason why all these murders are happening, is because he wrote a letter to one of his teachers, basically like his suicide letter, a couple weeks before he actually committed. And that teacher was Molly. And so then we find out that Trotter is Georgie Corrigan, Jimmy's brother. And so Trotter is trying to get revenge on Molly for basically like not doing anything to stop his brother from killing himself. Molly's like, I didn't get the letter until after he killed himself. Whatever. And yeah, Trotter reveals to Molly, like, I'm not actually a policeman. Like, you just thought I was a policeman because I showed up after you had called Hogbin, but there was no actual proof that I was a policeman. And then, so yeah, Trotter, Jimmy, Georgie start strangling Molly, but he's stopped whenever Miss Casewell comes in. And so there's a brief dialogue of them like, what are you doing? No. What's your name? Trotter asks Miss Casewell, like, what's your real name? She like has 4 names, but then she gets to Catherine. It's like Lauren, blank, Catherine, Casewell. And Trotter's like, wait, Catherine, how do you spell it? With a K. And so there's a brief reuniting sitch where we see the long-lost Corrigan sister reunite with Georgie Corrigan. And it's like this big thing, but it all goes like really fast-paced downhill after this. And so Major Metcalf comes into the scene, and he reveals, like, Trotter is not the policeman, I'm the policeman, basically. And he's like, I suspected Trotter from the beginning. He's like a real big, like, detective, policeman, whatever, investigator, private eye, I don't know. And so it comes to an end, and we find out Trotter was the real murderer all along. And here's just a couple of clues. I'm going to skip past that. So, Murder on the Orient Express. It opens with Hercule Poirot boarding the Orient Express in Istanbul. He's at I have it later. He's at a hotel before this, but the action doesn't actually start until that. And so him being like this big detective, everybody knows him. Samuel Ratchet's like, hey dog, I've been getting death threats on this train. You gotta help me. Poirot says no. He straight up doesn't care. There's this funny quote, I will not take your case because I do not like your face. Basically tell him get lost. And so that night while everyone's asleep, Ratchet is killed. He's stabbed 12 times. And so because of the murder, they're stalled. The train stalled. I forgot where it's stalled at. It's something with a V. And so Poirot decides to take the case, and he begins investigating everyone. And he goes into Samuel Ratchet's compartment where he was stabbed, and he finds multiple, more than 2, but 2 main pieces of evidence. Is the handkerchief with an H on it, and a note about Daisy Armstrong, who she'll come into play later. And, right there. And it's revealed that Samuel Ratchet is actually Cassetti. He's an American gangster who, he kidnapped Daisy Armstrong when she was 3 years old. And she made, Cassetti, basically. Daisy's mom killed herself out of grief. Daisy's dad killed himself out of grief for Daisy's mom. And then Cassetti framed those murders, suicides on their nanny. So Cassetti basically like ruins the whole Armstrong family. And then, so Poirot's working on the alibis. Where were you when, at the time of the murder? And so he finds out through all of these individual investigations that every single person on the train has ties to the Armstrong family. So he comes up with two solutions to the murder. One solution is the simple solution, is that a rando walked onto the train, killed Samuel Ratchet for who knows why, and then got off whenever the train was stolen. The second solution is that every passenger conspired against Cassetti to kill him. And so Poirot basically gives the people an ultimatum. Like, you can either pick one or the other. He gives it to them. It's their choice. And so obviously the passengers pick that it was just a rando dude who walked onto the train just so they get out of trouble. And that's where the story ends. And there's a couple of clues skipping past that. Some other works, look, John and Lawrence Cavendish are twins in Mysterious Affair at Styles. It's about Emily Inglethorpe's murder at the Styles court. And Poirot figures out that Alfred Inglethorpe and his mistress, Evelyn Howard, conspired against Emily to get her fortune. Pretty much the same on Death on the Nile. Poirot's having a vacation in Egypt, and he finds out that Lynette Ridgway was murdered on a cruise, and then he figures out that it was Simon Doyle and Jacqueline Belfour who killed her for her fortune. Also, like, mistress stuff. And then lesser known works, just know the name for Murder of Roger Ackroyd, the ABC Murders, and Then There Were None. And Then There Were None does often show up in like Power, little clues for that. But yay, now we get to the fun stuff, I guess. Get up here, y'all.
Is it more brain
Sigma
rot?
Queen.
Yeah.
It's not as good as the importance of being Sigma, because I did it last night, because I pushed it off. I did not want to brain modify the mousetrap. I can. So this scene is whenever we find out Trotter's true identity. You can start. Whoever's Molly and whoever's Trotter.
Okay. I thought alphas don't phantom tag.
She gasped at Trotter's face.
The alphas don't, but I'm not an alpha fatty. You thought I was an alpha because I raised your girl in bio, said Sergeant Trotter will be there faster than Phantom to Kai Sinat's Devil McChicken. You know who you're talking to, little bro? I'm Georgie Corrigan, Jimmy's brother.
Oh? I do not care.
Baby Grump can't save you now, Molly, but if you want, I could raise your Phantom tax right now. I want to yap about little bro real quick. Jimmy got no scoped and Maureen took the L on his body. But I said I'll spin the block when I'm older. So on Skibbity, I'm gonna have to get it back in blood.
You know, even if you do spin a block, you'll never outrun the popo.
I don't care if I can't outrun the 5-0. I'm a dog. I have fun running up your yachts.
You know your gun will be louder than a fat man snoring, so what's the point if you're just gonna get got?
Ooh, you're so right, I guess. I'll just have to choke you.
Starts choking that thing.
Your last yacht.
There we go.
Hooray!